instinct to step in and set the record straight. That's completely human. Sometimes it comes from a good place. You don't want your buddy to go on repeating the wrong information to other people. You don't want a colleague to look unprepared in front of a client. You don't want a family member to carry on mispronouncing a word they picked up somewhere. On the surface, that's a helpful impulse. But where people get themselves into trouble isn't with the correction itself. It's with how, where, and when they choose to deliver it. And this is something people notice. The difference between you being remembered as thoughtful and respectful or as arrogant and condescending. It usually comes down to whether you handled that correction gracefully. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're just sitting around a dinner table and a friend is telling a story. They're in the middle of a good groove. They're painting the picture. Everyone's listening. Laughter's building. And then they misremember the year that something happened. They say it was 2005 when you know for a fact that it was 2008. What happens if you stop the mid-sentence and go, actually no, it was 2008? You've just derailed the rhythm of the story, all so you could flex your memory. The story suddenly isn't about the funny thing that happened anymore. It's about who had the right year. Everyone's mood dips a little. Your friend feels self-conscious. And whether you meant it or not, you've come across as that guy who just can't let things go. And again, people remember that. They won't recall if it's 2005 or 2008, but they're going to remember how you made them feel in that moment. It sticks. And that's why one of the golden rules here is don't correct people in front of others unless it's absolutely necessary. Doing it in public makes the other person feel small, and it makes you look like you're more interested in showing off than in actually being helpful. Whether you're at a family gathering, you're out with friends, or even at a work meeting, you need to ask yourself, is this correction serving them, or is it serving me? Let's go ahead and move on to our work example. Let's say you're in a meeting and a colleague is presenting something. Maybe they mispronounce a word, or they slightly misstate a statistic. If you jump in right there in front of the whole group with, actually that's wrong, it's this instead, you've not only put them on the spot, you've also risked undercutting their credibility in front of the entire team. Even if you're right, you've made them look bad, and people don't forget that. They may forgive you, but they're never going to trust you to have their back. Now, contrast that with pulling them aside afterward and saying quietly, hey, just so you know, the figure was actually X, not Y. Delivered privately, that comes across as considerate. You've saved them from repeating the mistake later. You've given them the correct information. And most importantly, you preserved their dignity. sting of embarrassment burns longer than the benefit of the correction. And if you're the one who caused it, people don't think, wow, what a smart guy, always knows the right facts. They're going to think, wow, he'll throw me under the bus just to prove a point. Now, to be fair, there are situations where correction does need to happen on the spot in front of others. If the mistake has real consequences, like in a professional presentation where someone's about to give incorrect figures to a client, or in a classroom where misinformation could spread, then you have to step in. But even then, the way you phrase it matters. Instead of saying, no, you're wrong, you could soften it with, I think it actually might be this. Do you want me to pull up the data real quick? Suddenly, you're not framing it as them being wrong and you being right. You're framing it as teamwork. You've made it about accuracy as opposed to ego, and that lands completely differently. Now there's also the question of whether a correction is even necessary in the first place. A lot of the time it isn't. If someone casually misremembers the capital of a country in a conversation that isn't about geography, what do you gain by stepping in? The conversation wasn't about being precise. It was about sharing ideas and connecting with people. In those cases, the wiser move is restraint. You let it slide because correcting it adds nothing but awkwardness. You've got to pick your battles, and the truth is, most small mistakes just aren't worth the fight. Tone is another huge factor. Even if you've chosen the right place and the right time, if you deliver the correction harshly, it's going to backfire. There's a world of difference between saying, no, that's wrong, and saying, I think it might be this instead. I could be misremembering, but that's what I've heard. That softer phrasing leaves room for humility. It doesn't put the other person on the defense, and it shows that your goal is to share as opposed to score points. Think about kids for a second. When a child mispronounces a word, if you laugh at them, or if you sharply correct them in front of others, they don't just learn the right pronunciation. They learn to feel self-conscious. They carry that with them. But if you gently guide them in a one-on-one moment, they pick up the correct word without the shame. Adults really aren't much different. We pretend we're tougher, but really nobody wants to be corrected in a way that makes them feel small. At the end of the day, the question to ask yourself is simple. Am I correcting this person to serve them, or am I correcting them to serve myself? If it's about them, helping them to avoid embarrassment later, protecting their credibility, or guiding them toward growth, then that's the right motive. But if it's about you, your pride, your ego, your need to be seen as the smart one, then you're in the wrong, no matter how accurate your correction is. Facts facts fade, but feelings linger. People won't remember the detail you corrected, but they'll remember whether you made them feel respected or diminished. In the long run, being remembered as someone who protects dignity will carry you further than being remembered as someone who was always technically right. So, let's learn to be